10th Planet Austin.
Here we are, another episode of 10P ATX Chats. I'm here with Tyler Larkin from currently out of 10th Planet North Dallas with one of my really good friends, Chauncey Nuosolia. Sorry, Chauncey. I'm not sure if that was entirely right. I've never had to say your name out loud. But Chauncey's one of my really good friends. And, anyone who's a friend of Chauncey's is a friend of mine. Tyler came down 10th Planet Ronin, so this isn't his first go-round of trying out different schools, traveling around. And, you came down from Chauncey, and what I wanted to just dive right into with you is what is kind of your journey to 10th Planet and that finds you now in Dallas and kind of the journey that you're on?
Yeah, I appreciate it, man, and appreciate you having me on. Round two, but no, I got a lot of respect for you, and I just want to call that out first. I met you a couple weeks ago, and I'm very impressed by you as a person, and everything that I see going on with you. So I'm really excited to be here and chat with you. I'm an LA kid. I was born in LA. Grew up in Los Angeles. I moved around a little bit when I was a kid, but honestly, to get into Jiu Jitsu, I got jumped in 2007. I was hammered. I was in a fraternity. I had always loved UFC, all of that. And I went to University of Arizona. I was in SIGEP, and I'll never forget. I was with, I don't know if I should say this out loud, but I was with my ex-girlfriend's cousin, and I went to a date with her. Got hammered, and her house was across campus, so I dropped her off, and then I stumbled, almost blacked out. But I do remember right across the street from my fraternity, a car almost hit me, and I was like, I'm fucking walking here. And I kept stumbling, and I was almost to my house, and I heard like the shuffle of steps, and I turned and kind of looked because I heard them, and they just clipped me on the jaw, and I went down. And it fucked with me hard. Like the whole semester after that, I was real sketched out about Tucson, Arizona. I mean, I was already sketched out about Tucson, Arizona, but that was like the thing. And given I was, let's just say I got an education in drugs and marijuana, and I didn't get a degree from college.
No one did. What a waste of money. What a waste of money.
Totally.
Good Lord.
But yeah, so I was at University of Arizona, and I decided I didn't want to be there, so I finished my junior year. I literally had all my shit packed in my car, and my best friend from my first stint at San Francisco State, he's still one of my closest friends. Shout out to Alex Payne. But he was a really big, hey, you should get out of here. Why don't you come here? His family, ironically, was on the end of the 10 freeway in West LA. And I got in my car after I finished my last final, and I was like, fuck this place. And I jetted home. And about, let's say, a month after that, I had kind of dropped all my habits, so to speak. And I was trying to get healthy. And he had just started with Crone Gracie in Hicks and Gracie School off of Wilshire Boulevard. And shout out Crone Gracie, shout out Hickson. In 2008, that was my first foray. So I joined Crone Gracie School, and I loved it, dude. I was instantly hooked. I mean, I'm an ADD kid. They told me very early on, you got the thing, take these drugs. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
this will make it better.
Yeah, this will definitely make it better.
Yeah,
it won't screw you up worse.
But
it won't send you down a road of just trying out other drugs because they gave you drugs.
Oh, here's Adderall, and you can swallow it without any liquid. That might be a problem. No, but it did come in handy later when I started taking ecstasy. So
it prolonged a good time.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, I joined Hickson's gym, and that was after Hoxton had unfortunately, RIP, passed away in New York City, and so Hickson wasn't there as much, and Crone was running it. And Crone, you hear about the Crone Gracie Sicarios, they were blue belts when I started training there, and now they're all as dark horse black belts, Nick Frost, if you ever are looking for a dude who's just a straight killer and a killer artist. But Nick Frost, I remember being scared shitless of this dude. He had dope tattoos, and I was like, fuck. And but yeah, like these kids from the Palisades, like they grew up with Crone skating, and for a while, like Crone didn't want to go the like jiu-jitsu route, and the passing of his brother brought him back to it, and he built a wonderful school, and he built a bunch of killers, and he really empowered people with jiu-jitsu, and I was so fortunate, I mean apart from Maynard Keenan's fucking like platinum album of Anima by Tool, like being in the locker room because he trained under Hickson, and like there were all these like dope little things where I was like, this is my fucking spot, like these people get me, but Crone really like kind of.
You're saying Maynard from Tool?
Yeah.
What's his name again?
Maynard James Keenan.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
I always love listening to that guy.
Yeah, he's
incredible.
really,
but I'm not a Tool guy.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just time period.
Type thing.
But I love hearing him talk.
Yeah. No, I mean he's a brilliant dude, and like if you ever go on YouTube and see him, so he trained under Hickson, and he trains under a number of people in jiu-jitsu, but at the time when I started, I think he was a purple belt. And there's a video of him singing on stage in his underwear, and somebody like runs on stage to go get him, and he fucking hip tosses him, and then neon bellies him for like the rest of the song and sings it while he's like ripping through the song. So I mean Crone Gracie was the big, like, I mean my friend Alex got me in there, and another close friend of mine from college, Mo, funny story, Mo's dad is the lead guitarist of the Police, so like Mo was in there, and Mo's that like really short, I mean not short, but he's like the 5'8", skinny, but blue belt that would just wreck me. He would like fold me up at like 190 pounds, and he's like 145 soaking wet. So and that was cool for me too, because I learned like that. He really helped me understand, they like, you didn't need size in jiu-jitsu, you needed technique, because Mo would like whoop my ass a lot.
Yeah, there's a few guys like that right now. It's really frustrating me.
Yeah.
They get a lot better.
But yeah, I mean that's how I got into jiu-jitsu. That was my first. Crone Gracie's was my first teacher, sensei, under his father's tutelage, and then about a year and a half in, I almost broke my back. My father's a head, neck, and spine surgeon. He's a brain surgeon in Long Beach. And I remember I couldn't tie my shoes, so I showed up in his office, and he was like, "Go get an MRI." And it was like I had slipped L5S1 a full centimeter onto my spine. And when I came back into the office, he laughed, and he was like, "About half as bad. I start talking to people about surgery, but you're not getting surgery." So it was tough. Like I had to take time off, but in that.
What did you say it was? L what?
L5S1.
So you were getting the pain down the legs?
Yeah. So it was like really bad sciatic. Point being is that it took me out of jiu-jitsu, and in transparency, like I had been really good about not doing as many drugs and kind of get my life together, like out of college, and then I started taking some opiates. Man, you got to be careful of that shit, because that shit is like, that is the thing that pulls the slingshot back, in my opinion, and then you go, and it's like
they feel so good.
Yeah, and so that was like 2009, like 2010, and then like it was just hellfire of like drugs and alcohol, and I actually got sober in 2013. It was like I knew I was either gonna die or keep doing what I was doing, or I was gonna change, and it was kind of like one of those white light moments. And I'm very fortunate, my mother is sober, so I saw an example, right? Like in 2004, my brother found her like dead on the kitchen floor, and they had to revive her, and like she got the day she went to the hospital, she got sober. So
what did she like?
She was just like a alcoholic, straight up, like closet alcoholic. Didn't know how much she was drinking, would get hammered, but she got it together. And I always say like she passed the torch, right? Like when she stopped, I started, and then like I went to college and I fucking just went wild. But I got sober in 2013, and there were a couple things that I told myself when I got sober. Like I was like, okay, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do like, I want to go back to school, I want to finish my degree, I want to go back to jiu-jitsu, I want to get in shape. Like there were all of these things, and so it took me a little bit of time to kind of figure it out, and some bad relationships and some adventures on Tinder. But I was in Los Angeles, and I kept putting it off, and then I started my career in the beverage industry, and that's kind of what opened a lot of doors for me to move more and do more. So I started with a kombucha company in Southern California, and about a year and a half in, we launched Whole Foods Global. And I had been a big like Joe Rogan fan at this point, and like I was a big fan of On It, and I was a big fan of Eddie. And so, ironically enough, one of the reasons I moved to Austin in 2017 is because I wanted to join 10 Planet Austin. And I moved in 2017 and made a lot of excuses. And it's actually a mild regret. Like, I was very impressed with like Curtis and like all the stuff I had seen online. And I was like, I'm gonna fucking go there and I'm gonna do it. And I moved I moved here in September 2017. And I moved off of Mopac and Barton Creek. Like,
so you were 13 minutes away?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is a lesson. Like, if you're debating or thinking about it, do it, because it's you don't
get whatever the years are time back.
Yeah. No, 100%. I mean, it's like I think about it now, and it's like I could be like. For instance, when I first started training with Crone, like I played high-level volleyball in high school, and that was like my focus. And
in California, it's pretty serious.
Yeah. I mean, like in 2003, it was my first time I ever came to Austin. I came for Junior Olympics. We were playing at the convention center.
Damn, you were really good.
Yeah, I mean, the way that it works is like you're on these club teams and you come for JOs, and like that's kind of where the college scouts like field you and shit.
Oh, it's like AAU tournaments.
Yeah. And so, like, I came here, I'll never forget this.
But you were serious about it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and like, it's kind of like basketball, though. Like, you got guys that are fucking 6'11" and have 40-inch verticals, and you're like, Jesus.
The cool thing about Jiu Jitsu is that there's not a size or even an athleticism or, like, there's a way to find the art for you no matter what it is.
Totally.
So, like, in those sports, football, all of them.
Yeah.
Eventually, you just get to a point where there are people who just have a size difference.
Totally.
And there's not really anything that you're going to be able to do to change that.
Yeah.
And it's just like you ran it as far as you could.
Right.
It's that's just what all you could do, and that's part of the journey too.
But I harken back to Mo. He showed me though that like that's what's unique about jiu-jitsu, right? Like, it's not who runs the fastest 440. It's not who has the highest vertical. It's not who can lift the most weights. Like, it's different. Like, it's a, jiu-jitsu in a lot of ways to me is human chess, right? Like, as long as you can, and this is something Hickson Gracie always talked about. Like, Hickson would come and do seminars, dude. He would teach you like a half hour of technique and an hour and a half of breathing. And he would be like, I've never lost a fight that I controlled my breath in. That was what he would like speak that like religion.
Because I sometimes when I'm really rolling well, I notice my breath.
Yeah.
And
you were doing it yesterday to me, dude. I noticed you like hut-to, like as you're making movements.
It sounds crazy because people always think like whenever I'm rolling with them, it sounds like I'm like making
monkey noises.
I'm making monkey noises or special effects, like I'm a
Yeah.
But, like, I mean, I've seen a lot of high-level athletes do that in football when they're running. Right. I played in high school with a guy, Chris Hogan, who was on the 3 Patriots teams that went from 2016 to 2018, went to the Super Bowl each year. Super good athlete. And I saw him do that when I was young, and that was probably the first time that I saw the breathing aspect and then intuited that. But to Hickson's point is that just it allows you to kind of control the pace sometimes when you're rolling, too. Like, you're just... It brings it all together. And that's one of the things you're talking about right now is that in jiu-jitsu, it's not who lifts the most, whatever. It's like who combines all of the various attributes that are involved within the sport, whether that includes technique, strength, cardio, breathing, all of these things, right? And who combines that to maximize whatever their interpretation of the art form is versus yours.
Right. And what's interesting about Hickson, too, is like he was one of the first Gracie siblings to integrate yoga at the time. Like, nobody was really doing yoga. Like, they were all just like hard dudes that were going and they like the Gracie challenge, and like Hickson understood like there has to be a longevity, and I think it's because he was very close to the generation before him and saw kind of like the ailing aspect. So yoga was important, breathing was important, diet was super important for him.
It's the professionalization of the sport,
100%.
And what we're seeing within the sport over, especially with MMA being since basically since '93, right?
Right.
That was
right.
late '93. So we're watching, and this is what excites me about the sports, both of those sports, is that it's like being involved in football X number of years ago, or baseball. Like, it's like being there at the beginning and watching it grow and watching kind of the innovations come about. And to bring yoga in is so obvious now.
Right.
But, you know, and one thing is that 10 years ago in college, we would do yoga every Sunday.
Right.
So, like, people have started to get it across the board, the benefits of it. And now I come to the Jiu Jitsu with the benefit of all those years that allows me to have a little more longevity.
Right.
And we're going to see that impact all these other sports as well. Because people are getting the whole package together now. And then we benefit as the athletes that we are. Whatever the journey that we're on, we're frustrated we didn't start younger, right? Yeah. And we didn't continue.
Right.
But the journey that we're on, we're going to be allowed to do for a decent amount of time because we're learning.
Right. No, and I think, you know, going back to what you asked about my journey, like, I think, you know, and we had discussed, like, I had a regret, right? Like, I had some regret in regards to how I made, you know, like, I played volleyball in high school, and I remember when I trained with Hickson and Crone, I was like, why didn't I do that? Like, why did I spend all those years doing volleyball? Like, this is what I care about. And the lesson for me is, like, in 2017, I mean, I genuinely, like, you know, I made a post just about Curtis, because he was a big inspiration of why, like, I wanted to be a part of 10 Planet, and I missed that boat because I made decisions and I made choices that were just excuses, right? Like, I should have. And
we always have time. We always can find the time to engage in an activity that is so obviously beneficial.
Yeah. You know, and so I lived here from 2017 to 2019, but I started dating my fiance, like, now fiance, but I started dating her, like, right before I moved here. So
I worked out.
Yeah, and so then we lived long distance for a little while, and then when she moved here, like 8 months later, we actually moved up to North Austin. So it was like, I was up by the Domain,
and the traffic isn't like it is now.
No.
And which one benefit? I mean, I hate people locking us down as much as the next guy, but if you want to keep all these corporate people at home and tell them they don't need to come in, that's fine with me, because I haven't experienced traffic in a while.
Right.
I mean, so I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and it's funny because, like, I mean, I grew up in LA, right? And, like, one of the reasons I wanted to move to Austin was get away from that LA traffic. And, like, when lockdown happened, we were in the middle of a snowstorm in Denver, and I sent my fiance home, and a week later I was like, what the fuck am I doing? So I went home. Dude, 80 miles an hour down the 110 at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, nobody there. I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. Like, I could do this if there weren't so many people.
No wonder they're trying to get everyone out of California. Gavin Newsom's just like, bro, the one thing I can't control is the traffic. What if we make it so bad that everybody leaves?
Touche.
It's a good move.
Yeah. But yeah, no, so going back to my jiu-jitsu journey, it was, you know, again, like, you know, respect to you, respect to Curtis. I'm impressed by the culture of 10 Planet ATX, and I think what's funny is, like, now that I come back and I come here, I mean, it really does, and we can get into the family aspect of 10 Planet and why I think it's unique for me. But the point being is that, like, the culture and the dynamic of the gym is still something that, like, I was drawn to back then that I didn't make a decision on. But one of Curtis's close friends, training partners, Connor Hune, he was the original one who brought me into the 10 Planet system. So in 2019,
in Denver, right?
Correct. So in 2019, my fiance and I left at the beginning of June 2019 and moved to Denver from Austin. And when I got to Denver,
you lived in all the best places.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's funny. I'll tell you a little side tidbit. So at my sister-in-law's wedding, which is kind of where I met my fiance, it was in Costa Rica, and it was like the people who went there had their shit together, right? And I was in Los Angeles, and I was kind of like running with my own crowd, and I was in my you know, everybody's got a bubble from their hometown, and I kind of felt like I was in it, and I was like, being in Costa Rica on these beaches with all these people that were were moving in the right direction. They
Yeah.
were moving together. I was like, I gotta get the fuck out of LA. And I remember going home and writing a list of places I would move to. And so I had like Reno because I knew it was going to explode and Tesla was going to move a factory there. I had Boise, Idaho. I had Denver, Colorado. I had Austin, Texas. And it's so funny because like I've now lived in Austin. I've lived in Denver. But shout out to Texas. Nothing beats Texas. But yeah, so like when I moved to Denver, it's a hilarious story, and for everybody who listens to this who's a 10 Planet coach, especially, and shout out to Connor Hune on this one, but I called Connor after making 2 years of excuses and never showing up to 10 Planet ATX, and I told him that on the phone call. I was like, look man, like I had wanted to get back into this system. Like I trained with Crone like almost 10 years ago at this time now, and I was like, I keep making excuses and I just got to pull it. And he's like, you know what? I got an idea. Give me your credit card and I'll give you no excuse. And I was like, oh, that's the one. Like, that was such a good sales pitch. And so
wow,
I remember I was sitting on, I was in like right outside of the
that's
city.
That's a great sale.
Yeah, right? And I dude, it was so good. I tell this story to everybody because like Connor and Heather Jo Clark, like they're the two heads there, and like they're just such like genuine people that like really are trying to build a culture and community similar to that's here. Like, and I'll talk about the meccas because I've traveled to a bunch of different gyms, but I remember I was in a Natural Grocers parking lot in like Denver when Connor did that to me, and I remember giving him my credit card and walking into the store and just being like, damn, that was good. Like that was just so good. But yeah, so I started kind of end of June, beginning of July, I started back up in Jiu Jitsu with 10 Planet Denver. Best thing to happen to me at that point, you know what I mean? Like I'm so grateful to Connor and Heather, and it you know, something that it helped me because I think you know, my fiance and I learned this, and I tell this to people when they move. You know, it's really, and I talked to you about this when I first, but it's really important to find a community. And what Connor and Heather gave me in Denver, which I ran from, or I didn't force myself to change or overcome the challenge of building a community or finding a community to be a part of. And Connor and Heather gave me that with 10 Planet Jiu Jitsu and bringing me in. And like the people there are like, they're great people and everybody's trying to learn. And, you know, Connor's learning as he's going because he's like, I mean, the space at 10 Planet Denver, like anybody in the 10 Planet system, if you've ever considered going to Denver, go and see the gym that they've built. I mean, it's a beautiful facility. Like they pour their hearts and souls into it. It talks about the culture of them and like their professional fighting careers, and like, you know, it's a really cool community, and like even the artwork on the walls. And but yeah, I mean, they were the ones that imparted this on me. And I remember, you know, one of my first days, which I've probably held true more than most in the 10 Planet Jiu-Jitsu family, but you know, Connor was like, you know, a membership here is a membership everywhere. Yeah. And like if you're a member of 10 Planet, like if you go other places, like you just let them know that you're a 10 Planet guy and your family. And you know, I went back to Denver in October, and I rolled, I think it was an open mat, or I don't know, but I rolled, and Connor was like, hey, do you want to hit the infrared sauna? Because they have a big one there. And I sat in that sauna for an hour with him, and I talked about how, you know, I mean, I was one of the early guys when they really started to push Denver, and it's grown so much now. But I remember talking to Connor, and just, he was like, you know, I think you've used that like culture of 10 Planet Jiu-Jitsu being a family more than even I have, you know, because I travel so much for work. And so, you know, I have, as you can probably tell, I'm eternally grateful to Connor for that. Like he really picked up that phone, gave me a pitch I couldn't refuse. And like, that's what started me on 10 Planet Jiu-Jitsu. And, you know, when I lived in Denver for a year, but I traveled pretty much every week. And like, I remember right out of the gate, I think the first place I went to was HQ, and that's where I met Zack. Like I met Zack because he was on a traincation. And that post that I made about Zack.
Zack Edwards, 10 Planet.
Yeah, shout out to Zack Edwards. But Zack was a guy I met, and like, you know, we're all, I mean, I'm still a white belt, but I feel like I will be forever, but Zack, like, you know, I remember being really nervous and complimenting his beard, and I always think that's so funny. It's something that, but he had a good beard, yeah, and then, you know, like, I think the next gym I went to was Boogie's, and I spent a week out there training with Boogie and Nora, and it's at 10th_planet_Ronin, but I've tried to keep kind of a catalog of all the gyms that I've had, and I have a picture with Boogie and Nora, and then also you know, out at 10th Planet El Paso. Those are like,
you've been everywhere.
Yeah, those were the first 3 that I went to, and I was like, man, this is really cool that we can do this. And then like, so I've been, you know, I traveled to San Mateo. I trained with Alan and Big Red. Let me tell you, if you want to learn what the shoulder of justice is, go hang out with Adam and feel that shoulder of justice, because it's wild. And you know, those guys, they got a great gym there, and like their whole flow of like how they work with everybody is cool. And then like I've been out to the Omaha team. You know, I've trained with a couple of those guys out there. I've been to Albuquerque, trained with Nasty Nate out there, and you know, I've been out and trained in Vegas with Andy and Casey. And
you've been back to Tucson?
I haven't rolled, but I ironically enough, I moved my fiance out here, and on the drive back I was like, fuck, I want to go, and like we ended up in Tucson on a Saturday, and I think the gym was closed, and I was like, fuck, and so I had to keep going, but yeah, you know, and another really important gym for me, you know, and I miss it a lot, because you know, Amir is a great dude, and just like his body size made a lot of sense for me, so he should, I mean, you know, if you ever get to roll with Amir Alam, he's a 10 Planet Salt Lake City.
Yes.
Dude, his speed, like, you look at him and you'd be like, you know, maybe he's like a big run, but dude, his like Ashigaramis are like, oh, like, how did that happen? You know what I mean? But I spent a lot of time in 2019 in 10 Planet Salt Lake City, because I managed that area, and I'm grateful to those guys. But yeah, I mean, you know, that's sort of my journey, and how I end up at so many of these gyms. And then this year, I went home, and you know, I got to spend a little bit of time with Z. Shout out to Z, my coach. I love the rash guard. Wore it yesterday as Zack was smashing me. And you know, I got to learn from the great dark arts himself, Marvin. Yeah. And you know, spend a little bit of time out there, and then you know, I shout out to Chauncey. I just got off the phone with him. Spent a half hour, but you know, I got a lot of respect for Chauncey and a lot of respect for what he's doing, and you know, it's cool, like getting, like, you know, 10th Planet North Dallas is my banner. That's my badge of pride. Yeah. You know, I carry all of the 10th Planet schools that I've been with. But like, you know, I'm really proud of being a part of Chauncey's like building community, and it's fucking cool. And like, you know, I moved
Chauncey and I, like, dude, we're both just like, we just vibe like so deep, man. He's like, he's the best, man. Like, it's just like the sense of humor is there. Yeah, it feels like we both kind of have the Chappelle Show sense of humor there, and there's like it's just the way it goes back and forth, man. And to see him have a black belt now too, and the school's moved into a new space. So it's starting to grow. It's starting to grow its own culture. So when we came across the street from On It, because he's with Janjira Muay Thai, which is a great Muay Thai school, but now they're next door to each other, which just adds a little bit more of like a, hey, like, this is our space. We can use it more frequently as well. There's not going to be someone else on the mat. Like at our gym, we have 2 separate mats. So now they have those 2 separate mats, which makes a massive difference, because everyone's trying to build. The money isn't, and the future isn't just in the gym, in the jiu-jitsu gym. The future that we're all working towards is growing out the gym to be a full-service place that builds you into an MMA fighter if that's what you want in that city. So for the relationship that he's constructed there with the gym, and then having his own, it's going to be, it's really, you're going to watch the culture change more now, because that's part of the culture at 10th Planet Austin, is that we were across the street with On It, and we had to walk through On It, and it was just a little bit different. Sometimes there'd be a celebrity over here working out, or over there. Now it's just our gym,
Right.
and it is what our heart and what the culture is becoming.
Yeah. No, and
that's not to downplay it on its role either.
No.
On it's a great place, but
totally.
it's just you see a little bit. You're gonna see a small shift, and you might not see it before it happens, but you're gonna look back and be like, wow, like things changed a little bit.
Well, and I know exactly what you're, because I harken back to 10 Planet Denver, man. When 10 Planet Denver started, it was in a gym called Brute Force, and then it moved to a place called Genesis, and it was it's hard when it's not yours, because it's you got to work around other people's schedule, is a good way to say it, and people have busy lives, they have conflicts, they have relationships, they have families, things like that, and so. It's sometimes it's difficult to have a routine, but I think like when a gym has its own space and it can offer a variety of classes and it can continue to build the community, the way 10 Planet does, because 10 Planet, I mean, it's family, man. Like it's a
very unique group of individuals.
It really is.
There's a few things that it's not like there wasn't like a business planning behind it, right? Like we're both business minded guys, and people talk about business plans or how you're going to market this or that. The way Eddie has marketed the school in a lot of ways is just he's gone out and he's been Eddie. Mm-hmm. So when he goes out and he is Eddie, people who are like Eddie are like, damn, that sounds like a really cool place. Yeah. That guy's a little bit wild. Yeah. He's clearly thinking outside the box in a really unique way, because he's created a system that has a lot of really good jiu-jitsu players within it. Right. And he was this guy who came out and he was the first person to submit a Gracie. Right? And that's super impressive. And then he's under John Jock and all these kinds of things, and he goes on Rogan and he talks like he does, and he attracts, like you say, you call it the group of weirdos and things like that. I mean, it's just, we have these discussions, everyone comes through. One of the things that you described was you've gone to all these different schools. What's crazy is like how many of those guys have come here and how lucky we are for them to come here. Mm-hmm. People come into town and we're all on the same page. Okay. And so we're in an era where we're just talking about we obviously utilize technology for work and for staying in touch with each other, but so much of it is algorithmically based to construct the reality that the algorithms and the people behind the algorithms want. And we have a system of people that are off of, we are having real conversations and figuring out how the world is for us, which for guys like us who have maybe gone through addiction or maybe just kind of looked for the tribe that you really fit into, which could be this year, nothing's more important than tribe when you're considering people are either you stay home or you're out training and you're continuing to be all right mentally. Training is a big part of that. And so the tribe that Eddie's constructed, that where you are benefiting so much from, you get to go to these cities, and one of the things about moving too is you move somewhere and you immediately have a group of people that you're gonna find your place in. I mean,
and it's to your point, with the disconnect of people, people. I feel like a lot of people right now feel overwhelmed by kind of how things are, and you and I talked about this when you and I first talked together. We went outside and but I do think sometimes. People want to act globally, but what they need to do is think locally and focus on community, man. And that's what 10 Planet I feel has done well, is that it's community. It's and it's they're ex-football players. They're all these different types of guys and gals that come in, but the reality is that we're all a little bit of misfits and weirdos in some way. Shout out to Ken Peters with Supernatural, but Supernatural Survivor Gear. Let me drop that whole thing. But no, I talked to Kent about this because I was I bought some gear and he sends those personal emails, and I was like, man, the line he's built is specifically for the people who always felt weird and didn't know how to express themselves. And in a lot of ways, that is sometimes how I feel about 10 Planet, is that it's given the weirdos and the freaks and the geeks, no pun intended, but literally the 10 Planet freaks, it's given us a place where nobody really judges us, nobody really I show up
the world's so full of judgment,
dude, and the beauty of it is that it gives us a template of how to impact community, right? Like how to know, like, where's my community, like where's my local footprint, what can I do here, right? And then, like, I mean, obviously, like, we're 10 planet guys, but at some level too, like, Eddie gets to think about that more on a grand scale because he's got 10 planets everywhere, and it's like, how do you impact the community? And it's things like this. It's things like 10 planet jiu-jitsu that, like, it's a like, I always joke, people are like, how do you, like, deal with the stress of, like, your career all day, and then you, like, go and you do this? And I'm like, yeah, well, like,
that's what I'm looking forward to all day.
Yeah, right? It's like when you get choked out and you survive, and then the guy who's choking you out is like, you meet him, you get to talk to him, and it's like,
you get to be around people that are like, because people, you talked about the more corporate environment than the one you're involved in now.
Yeah.
And just, like, it's so buttoned down, and I was taking notes on this today, and it's just like, I was thinking about my situation with football, where I'm putting that behind me. I've shed the skin of caring about football, writing about football, all these sorts of things. I got my book that's going to come out, and I'm maybe the first person who's going to release a book about football and not want to talk about football.
Right.
And it's like, I look at that, and I realize that there was so much ahead of me with what we have and with the system we have, and just, like, the conversations that we're allowed to have with each other, because we don't have to wear that skin. We don't have to wear the corporate skin or the world skin, the how we're supposed to believe, how we're supposed to behave. And the thing that Eddie's attracted is just people that are, like, willing to have, like, good conversation and are open-minded. And, like, I mean, there's nothing more powerful than that's a really big part of what Eddie, like, that's what the flat earth thing that he talks about is. I always tell people, it's just like, he talks about flat earth, he just wants you to question everything.
Right.
That's all that's about.
Yeah. Well, and that's why they always joke, like, you talk to guys, and, like, a really important person to me in this system, shout out to my friend Brock McKenna and Zane Stone. Zane is a Denny brown belt, and he is a coach over at Denver. Did a lot of privates with Zane, learned a lot from him, and he's become a very close friend of mine. But he always jokes, and he's like, you learn the flat earth shit when you're a purple belt, right? Yeah. But it's also because, like, and I don't claim to know this, but from people I've talked about, it's like, it's more that you start to be inquisitive about, your attacks. You're inquisitive about your abilities, like, you know what I mean? And so, and I think, what in the same vein of what Eddie forces us to do with, like, and has always forced himself because of Jean-Jacques, right? Because of Jean-Jacques' situation and how he adapted jiu-jitsu to it.
For those who don't know, Jean-Jacques has, like, 1.5, like, his hand doesn't have any fingers, right?
Yeah, so it's like it essentially looks like this.
Right?
But,
but that's why he has those underhooks.
Right.
That's why he had to think about the game differently, which then gets passed on to Eddie, and Eddie then passes that on to us.
Right.
And it's like, because I've been taking notes today on, like, relationships between a father and his son, right?
Mm-hmm.
And thinking about mine with my dad, and thinking about the way that the way he talks and the conversations we have has had an impact on the way I perceive the world, and then what his underlying beliefs that he's not expressing might be, right? And then you think about it with Eddie, and, like, the thing that Eddie's he's passing on this way of thinking to all of us, and it comes from Jean-Jacques, who, like you just expressed, had a unique thing that caused him to see the entire thing differently, which then told Eddie, oh, that's how you see these things differently.
Mm-hmm.
And then now we kind of get passed on to us, and we have those kinds of conversations where it's like, we're just around a lot of really interesting people.
Right. And I think, I think one of the most important things in life is adversary and change, right? And sometimes things can seem, monumentally difficult, but change is what provides the solution. And that's one of the hardest things for us as people to do, whether it's addiction, whether it's career-wise, like, whether it's just introspectively and interpersonally, and sometimes, like, you think about what Eddie has done, and it, that's what it is, right? Like, there would be an adversity in jiu-jitsu, and he would think about it differently, and it allowed him to develop, like, MTS and the system, and like, change the way that jiu-jitsu is approached. Now, is that, is everybody happy about it? No. Like, but it doesn't matter, because, like, at the end of the day, like, it saves my sanity, You know what I mean? And we talked about it. It saves your sanity. I mean, we think about it all day, and it's, you know, and it's funny. My boss, he's not a jiu-jitsu guy at all, but he's like, I get it, because like I want to jump out of helicopters and be in, you know, 14-foot deep backcountry snow, right?
Yeah.
And so we all have our things that I think, like, when they're pushing the threshold of our limit and making us face that adversary and change, that's what's healthy, right? That's what's unique. And I think 10th Planet gives that door a little bit more.
It's a place where you can show up and do that every day.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you can, like, again, like, going back to like how many moon bases there are, and how easy it is for you to walk in and be like, I'm part of the family from here, and they're like, let's do this, like, get on the map.
Joey, I know you've experienced this, and you know, Joey was just telling me about going out to San Diego, and Gabe had given them a heads up he was coming, and they treated him, you know, great. And you know, it's the same thing when the guys come into town, and you know, I watched Curtis do it, and now I kind of take on some of that role where it's like the Bethlehem guys came into town for last weekend's Who's Number One, and I went and I hung out with them for like 4 hours and just shot the shit, and like Zach was a little banged up with a migraine, but John was there, his girlfriend Laura, John Blank, Laura Lace, and J.M. Holland, and then Grace's mom was there too, and just having really interesting conversations with people that have this similar perspective to you from somewhere completely different, and you just get to have this thing, like this conversation with people that you wouldn't have gotten to engage with before.
Right. And I think it's, you know, it's a symptom of technology in our society, is that we've lost the ability to express and accept a variety of ideas. And that's one thing that, like, I feel like 10th Planet, it does. Like, you meet people that are bound by this, you know, this system, but you're able to break the barriers down in a role and then have a heartfelt conversation, because you're raw, right? Like you know, like, your capabilities, you know, your positioning. Like, when you get wrecked by a black belt, you know exactly where you sit on the totem pole, right? And I think, like, you know, 10th Planet being able to give you so many doors to walk through, both metaphorically and physically. Like, you go to a different city, you walk in, you're a 10th Planet person, and boom, you're on the mats. And then, like, you get worn down, and then at the end, it's like, man, how long you been doing this? And it just sparks the conversation, you know. I just think that this system provides that ability to change, that ability to have those conversations, to express, you know, and what are we missing is the expression of a variety of ideas, and understanding that our perspective is not wholeheartedly the one. And I think that's something that technology takes away from us, right? Because the less human,
it wants conformity,
right? Like,
I mean, the platforms are telling you they want conformity too. They're labeling the things that aren't conforming, they're taking down the things that aren't conforming, they're demonetizing the things that don't conform.
And that's quite literally the opposite of what Eddie wants. He's like,
it's the opposite of the scientific method. So the people that are like that, trust the science. It's like, oh, well, if you want to trust the science, we have a hypothesis, we'll debate it, and then we'll figure out where it lies, you know? And it's like, and that's what a role is, right?
Right.
It's like, hey, I come in here with my bullshit jiu-jitsu, and then you give me your jiu-jitsu and you fuck me up. Like, I got bullshit jiu-jitsu. I mean, your jiu-jitsu either works or it doesn't. And so, like, for us, guys like us, is that there's a lot of people out there that are searching for the answers and searching for reality, and this is the daily art of dealing with reality.
Totally.
And that's why Eddie's so interesting. That's why the community's so interesting. And to get, we're gonna wrap it up, because Colt gave me the a little bit ago, which I say every episode is Colt gave me this a little bit ago, and you don't know how long he gave it ago. But it was a while ago. But we could talk all day. So. But you were talking about the meccas, you know.
Yeah. So you know, and there's no, you know, this is just like it in my experience from being in so many different schools, like. You go to some of these schools and like ATX is a mecca, right? And it's like how you were saying, like so many people from so many places come, and I think all across the country there are gyms, and I haven't been to all of them, but I've definitely been to quite a few, and it's like, you know, like you look at like Boogie's community and like and Geo, like the freak community that, you know, now they got Spring Valley and they got Oceanside and they got San Diego, and now you got you know, Big Brown out in Perry, Georgia, that's a freak school, and there's one in New Zealand, and like and what Connor and Heather.
Well, and we got Gabe too. I mean, this is Curtis's school, but it is. We got Gabe, and then we have Mount Pleasant as well with Tony.
Exactly. And what I think is really cool about like Gabe being here is he brings that like flair of the freaks, but also that like concrete, like it was handed down from Eddie to Curtis, and Curtis built it. But the point of the Mecca is, it's just that they're like for instance, Denver has this beautiful space that is such an homage to like Eddie and the system and the Colt, like our lineage, right? Like there's some really cool, like when you go to gyms and like you see the lineage and you're like, damn, like Omega, fucking all of these guys like led to this, and and so like just with the Mecca is it's just a term I use with like these gyms that have like. It's
you get
almost
the feel of it,
Yeah, it like
when you're there,
that's what I mean.
It's like the definition of porn. You know it when you see it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's I don't know. I just think like when you walk into 10 Planet ATX, it's almost like a feeling that comes over you that you're like, oh fuck, I'm in a mecca of jiu-jitsu and I'm in a mecca of 10 Planet, and like. That's how I felt when I walked into the doors with San. And again, I've not been to every gym by any means. So I mean, I say that, but like I felt that way at San Diego. I felt that way when I walked into Halstead's, with Vegas, and I felt that way at Denver, and even in El Paso, like so.
Well, you can feel what's being built. You can feel 100%. What's coming up, and so being a part of a lot of teams growing up, even from the time I was like 9. I've been a part of a lot of strong teams, and to be a part of this is really unique at the time period that we're in terms of just the growth of the sport. I have a feeling that we're on the front side of a big explosion because, like we said, nothing illustrates the importance of community more than this year.
Right.
And for anyone out there who's listening, that you're listening to us and you hear us talk about this stuff with it kind of feels like it's speaking to you. This is the place to come wherever your 10th Planet is, and it's an incredible place, and it's an incredible thing to watch culture build, because that's another thing that we get to see, that we just get to see a lot of things that cross over to whatever we're trying to accomplish professionally or personally.
Totally.
So that's part of the benefit of being a part of the school, because it's not just training. There's a lot of stuff that you're picking up through the training, through the inquisition of this versus that. And then over time, everything else that you see, all the conversations you have over the course of that time period, it then just converts you into a different individual than you were 4 years prior, a year prior, 3 days ago.
I mean, also in this day, it's so easy to quit things. And jiu-jitsu isn't about like an end line. It's about accepting that you're going to do something. It's like when you go to college, you accept for 4 years you're going to do this, and when you're done, it's like, all right, now what? And I think jiu-jitsu innately is this thing that you accept that you're going to do it, and then you never give it up, right? Yeah. And you have to work at it, you have to nurture it, you have to change your preconceived notions on it, and really like work to, again, overcome adversity and change. Like that's jiu-jitsu, right? And I think Eddie has done that,
and it teaches you how to overcome adversity everywhere else. Right. So if you're going through addiction and you have a day where I feel like having a drink, or I feel like doing this, you're like, nah, like I can deal with this.
Oh yeah. No, and Connor always would say it. It's like, it doesn't matter what stress you bring into the gym. When you walk out realizing you survived being choked out, it's not all that bad.
Yeah, and I think that I just think that there's so much there that serves just what people need, and so. Where can people find you? And we didn't even talk about this without some liquid death. What is your title?
Head of regional sales manager.
Selling shit.
Central, yeah, right.
Yeah. Regional sales manager for Central America. Well, Central part of America.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you find me at 10th_planet_Ronin. I picked that up because a Ronin is a samurai without a leader, and I spent a lot of time traveling away from my head coach. I that was something I was talking to Chauncey. I was like, I just want you to know that I respect you, and I want to make sure that you don't think that I'm like in and out. Like, it's not how I want to be. It's just that I travel so much for work, and I think it's important to respect the people that lead us, but sometimes we got to walk our own path, and that's kind of where I came up with Ronin, and
it's crazy that you're allowed to train. You're able to train in so many different places though as you travel. I mean, there's such a massive benefit of that. Every city you drop down in, you've got family there. It's a wild thing to be able to have. It's a really, really big blessing.
I mean, it changes your confidence level everywhere you are. So.
Yeah, because you're like, damn, like I get to see so and so. You gotta go. All right, we're out of here. Wait, the plugs. 10th Planet, 10P ATX apparel on Amazon. Drink Action. Use the coupon code 10P ATX for 15% off. Drinkaction.com. And then lastly, you can go to onnit.com and use 10P ATX for a discount there as well. And you can buy my book at the451project.com. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed. I know you enjoyed. We'll see you again. Thank you, bro.
Appreciate it, brother.
That was good,
Yeah.
bro.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
That was good.
10th Planet Austin.